There we go. Ooh. I think, yeah, well, let's wait one more minute and then we can go ahead and get started. Unfortunately, we don't have quorum yet, but hopefully we will soon. Naomi, perfect. Yes, we have quorum now. Great. All right. And we've got Lakeisha. That's great. All right. So I think we should go ahead and get started. Welcome to the November meeting of the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. I'm Karthik Balasubramanian. We generally start with a round of introductions, then we can jump into our agenda. So as I mentioned, I'm Karthik Balasubramanian. I'm the chair, and I live in Southwest DC. I have an eye condition called macular degeneration, which makes me unable to drive and also see details. So I primarily rely on the bus and bicycle to get around. Yeah, that's me. So I'll pass it over to other folks on the council. So I'll pass it over to Lizzie next, and then if you can kind of popcorn it over to the next person, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Lizzie Reagan. I'm a resident also of Southwest DC. I am a wheelchair user, so identify as having a mobility disability, and I'll pass it over to Naomi.
Hi, everyone. I also live in Southwest DC, and I also use a wheelchair. And I am just interested in improving transit for people like me. Is there anyone else on the council, or should I pass it to someone else?
Maybe Zach.
Yeah, Zach.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Zach Smith with the District Department of Transportation, also liaison to the MAC, and I will pass it to my chief, Lakeisha Lopez.
Good evening, everyone. This is Lakeisha Lopez, Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer for DDOT, and thank you, and hope everyone enjoyed the presentations for today.
Great. Lakeisha, can you pass it over to someone else?
I do apologize. I will pass it on to Ashton.
Thanks. It sounds like you've got maybe some kiddos in the background, so I appreciate you being here. My name is Ashton. I am a resident of Southwest. I don't have any disabilities yet myself, but I have several family members that do, so I consider myself an ally, and I will pass it to Naomi. No, Naomi's gone. Elizabeth Saria. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Sorry, are you on?
Sorry, is that me, Syra? You're trying to say?
Oh, Syra, sorry. I didn't mean to mispronounce your name.
I'm not part of the council. Does that matter?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, because we've got such a small group, we generally just introduce everybody.
Okay. I'm also sorry. Like my camera was working earlier and now it's not. I am happy to be here. This is my first time here. My name is Syra Molina. Here's my camera. You can see me now. I work for the Department of Transportation. I'm a transportation specialist. And what am I supposed to be answering? I didn't pay attention because I thought it was
just a general intro and kind of what brings you here.
Well, what brings me here is a specific project, but what brings me to working as a public servant is that, and specifically at DDOT, is that one, I love my city. I'm not originally from DC, but DC raised me, is what I like to say. And so it is home for me, and is the home that I've known since I was like 5 years old. And I have always wanted to serve my community, and specifically also like the transportation community. My mom, she's now like around in her like mid 50s, and she's biked all her life. And she's been hit multiple times. I've been hit multiple times. And now I'm raising a kid in DC, and I'm teaching her about transportation. And I just want to make sure that I make our transportation network better for her and our kids and you know, the rest of our families, and even my mom who's 50 and she still bikes. So that was long, but yeah.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Anyone else who hasn't introduced themselves?
Did Jacob go?
Jacob, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, I'm Jacob. I'm a student at Catholic University. I'm just here for like a class. I have to attend like a meeting about like transit. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Thanks for being here. So I think we can go ahead and get started. So what we've got, so today we've got DDOT on deck to talk about South Dakota Avenue and what they're proposing there. I also want to address, so we did send out our resolution on daylighting to folks. So talk about that. Naomi has a letter that she'd like to present, or it would be great to kind of pass something out of Naomi's work, and then also have general discussion. Before we hand it over to DDOT, we still haven't gotten a response from anyone actually on the DDOT side. So one thing that I was thinking about for this is specifically on the resolution and letter that we sent on daylighting, asking for an action plan. This has gotten picked up by a few other councils. So I know I've sent it on to the PAC, and the BAC I think is discussing it tonight as well. And then Families for Safe Streets is also very interested in pushing this. So I think one next step, I just wanted to float it by everybody, is actually to print these out and send them hard copy to people via FedEx. And hopefully with the hopes of that making it to actually people and people taking it a little bit more seriously. What do folks think about that?
Hi, this is Zach. We did receive the letter and we are working on a response to the letter. The letter did give a date of March. So just putting that there, there was that date, but we definitely received it and are working on a response.
Cool. So the date was actually for a full plan. So it would be, maybe it would be good if someone can just acknowledge receipt, like we got this and we're formulating a response. That would be great.
Okay. Do you need something more than me?
Ideally, it's from the director. That's just saying like we've received this and we're taking it seriously, and we'll formulate a response, and we're working on a response.
Okay.
Well, on the behalf of the director, I'll leave that with Zachary, and I have delegated authority to respond on her behalf on that, and we'll have it through myself from her. So you'll get something no later than next Wednesday at the latest.
Yeah, that's great. Just some acknowledgement would be great.
Okay.
Super great. And then the second, so then I think, so then after that, open discussion, we had talked about enforcement, and then also we had talked about having Lizzie brought this up a few times, that I think it's a really great idea, is looking at that capital project list, and even independently of the capital projects list, thinking about what an equity lens would look like, or specifically an intersectional equity lens would look like, and how we might take our work and present it to folks and actually get feedback. So those are kind of the big picture things that I'm hoping to do after the South Dakota Avenue presentation by DDOT. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to DDOT to talk about South Dakota.
Yes, thank you so much for giving me the platform to meet with you guys and provide you just a brief down on what we're doing at South Dakota. I'm going to begin sharing my screen.
So the way to do that on Google Meet is there is a set of icons on the bottom where there's a right hand. Oh, yeah, you got it. Perfect.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your guidance. I may need it's the first time I use this, but if I need to go back and forth on the slides, how do I do that?
Okay, so now just flip to. You can actually just present. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Got it. Technology, let me tell you. I'm like I have my 8-year-old teaching me how to be tech savvy, which is crazy. But yes, thank you so much. Okay. So South Dakota Ave Courtier, a little bit of background. So in the FY24 budget, Councilmember Parker embarked local capital funds for us to fund efforts to improve safety on the corridor in the short term, and preferably by constructing a road diet on a segment of the South Dakota Ave corridor. The committee recommended 2 segments between Bladensburg and Monroe, or the segment between Sargent and Riggs. Excuse me, but because South Dakota Ave, there was no like specific study that had been done previously, and because it was not within like our project like bucket for like these upcoming years, or the FY24 year. We wanted to just do a full comprehensive study of the corridor to make sure that if a segment was selected or for a road diet, then we understood the impacts, and we understood also based on traffic analysis and data that we were selecting the appropriate safety treatment for those segments or that area, right? Or for the corridor as a whole. So in the fall of 2023, DDOT began analyzing the corridor current condition and determining the best way to utilize the budget. The current conditions that we've learned from our analysis have been that we understand that there's a speeding concern on the corridor. Our ATE, we have a lot of ATEs, I think about like 7 ATEs, speed cameras and 1 red light camera on South Dakota. And it's tracked that there is a bit of speeding, of course, since we have some ATEs, and lower traffic off-peak unused lane space tends to lead to that speeding issue. We've also learned that there are a lot of crashes within the corridor. So the intersection treatments needed at Rhode Island and Bladensburg. Those are 2 intersections that have been in our high injury network, or are within our priority intersections, because we understand that there are a high crash intersections. There's also a lot of crash risk, meaning like risk crosswalks that need safety treatments, especially near schools. Residents want better access to school, metro stations, existing bus stops, and parks. And then there's also the conversation of quality of life. So residential communities bisected by noise, major streets. And then we are also having conversations with WMATA in regards to adding bus services along the South Dakota Avenue in 2025 with their network redesign, and then just seeing what their plan is, so we understand what to prioritize and how to coordinate both of our projects. For the goal of this project is one, as I noted, like reducing speed, right? A lot of the other concerns tie in with driver behavior. And one of those major driver behaviors are speeding, unfortunately. So we want to reduce speed. We want to improve safety for pedestrians walking and rolling, biking, taking the bus, and driving on the street. We want to make sure that whatever mode of transportation that you use to enjoy the public space within the corridor, that you're doing it safely. We also want to address safety and crash patterns at complicated intersections like the ones I named: Rhode Island, Michigan, Bladensburg. We also want to remove or enhance safety and visibility of uncontrolled turns from side streets, enhance crosswalk safety so that drivers and pedestrians can better see one another, and improve bus services with our partnership with WMATA in regards to their bus redesign network. So what is the road diet? There is a lot of misconception and misunderstanding of what a road diet is. I think it's something that has been kind of like in the transportation world for a while, but we're just maybe like seeing it now in our streets or experiencing it. We have done a couple of road diets within the district. One of them that comes to mind is Wheeler Road. The other one that comes to mind is Minnesota. We have New Jersey Ave as well. And I can point you to others. I just can't think of them at the moment. But so what is it if you're not aware of what that project or what a road diet is? Road diets are reconfigurations of typically 4 lanes, roadways to 3 or 2 lanes, and extra space is repurposed. Average total crash reduction approximately 20 to 50% for all modes. Manages street space for all day volume of traffic, not just peak hour. Reduces common crash types like side swipes and angle crashes from left and right turns in active travel lanes. And then street space can be repurposed for turning lanes, pedestrian refuge islands, bicycle lanes, and or parking as needed. Protected bicycle lanes have crash reductions of 50% on average. And these are the 4-lane undivided, and then 3 lanes undivided, the road diet reduced common crash types. This is also like a fun fact or like a fun picture of South Dakota in 1962. 1 lane each direction, centers turn lanes. Things have changed, so and they're going to continue to change. But we just wanted to we found that, and so we wanted to share it with the community. So what are we looking at for South Dakota? So there are TDOT's team will be analyzing 3 options, but we recently committed to 4, so we are in the process of updating that fourth option, and it will be a road diet option between Bladensburg and Riggs Road, as well as study spot safety treatments across the study area. And then the options here are all potential designs for the road diet, not a statement of feasibility or impact. That's to come. So one of the options are it says reconfiguring options 4-lane section. So there's the first one. So it's 3 lanes plus full-time parking, and maintaining 1 lane in each direction. So you see the 1 lane in each direction. Use curb space for full-time parking. You can see the full-time parking here. And then center can be a left turn lane or pedestrian island, dependent on need. So this is a left turn, like one intersection. If there's a high left turn need, then it will serve that intersection for that. If there's like a pedestrian need, for example, like I'm thinking Perry, there's a school there. If there's a lot of pedestrians crossing that area, then maybe like we're considering that pedestrian island. So that's option 1. And then noting that these are what we're looking at, what we're studying at the moment. We're just giving you examples. When we pass the study phase, at that point we'll come back to you with designs, and at that point you can choose the options. Right now we're just giving you options of like what may come. This this is not a design or option for South Dakota. We're just letting you know what we're studying, the options that we're studying. Option 2 is 3-lane plus parking and 2-way protected bicycle lane. So you could see maintaining 1 lane in each direction. So it would be here. And then use curbside on one, use curbside on 1 curb face for protected bicycle lane. So you can see the protected bicycle lane here. And use opposite curb for parking. So you can see the parking here. And center space can be left turn island or lane or pedestrian island, depending on need. So this is one with a turn in, and then this is one with a ped island. And then the other option that we're studying is a 3-lane plus protected bike lane, maintaining 1 lane in each direction. So you can see, use curb side space for protected bicycle lane. So you can see the bicycle lane on each side. And then center space can be left turn lanes or pedestrian island, as noted previously. So that's the third option. Again, I'm going to come back for the 4th option because we just committed to it and it was short notice. But we'll provide more information as it comes. So for project schedule, we are in this phase right now, which just engaging as many community members and stakeholders as we can, which is why I'm here. We just want to get the word out that we're studying South Dakota Ave. By no means are we going to go out and do construction tomorrow or next month, or even the previous month. Construction is not estimated until further out in the in maybe spring 2026. But we definitely want to get the word out of the project because more engagement is better than little engagement. So we've been out to a lot of community meetings. We're gathering data, and we are reviewing community comments that we've received and putting everything together so that we can get ready for the 2nd round of public engagement. In that public engagement meeting, you'll get an update on what our studies and data showed, the possible option or treatments or safety treatments for the corridor. And then we'll also review and provide the community the feedback that we've received. And then we're going to continue on with the engagement. We have a 3rd round of engagement sometime in spring, summer 2025. And then, of course, NOI. We also want to, it's highly important to note that in order to fulfill this project, future funding will be needs to be allocated, but we can we'll continue to work along with our council member on that funding as we proceed with this project. So who are we planning to engage? Well, everyone. As I noted, I want to hear from everybody. It could be, we definitely prioritize residents that live on South Dakota Ave, but also people that utilize South Dakota Ave to get from one place to another. And also our stakeholders such as you all. And so we want to make sure that if you know of anything that would help us understand South Dakota or have any concerns that you want to express to us to help understand what kind of concerns you have for the corridor, we want to hear it. We want to hear it all. And so we've so far engaged with a lot of the individuals listed in this list. We've been working very hard since the spring, summertime on making sure that we engage with everyone. And if we miss someone here, please let me know and we'll make sure to add them to the list as well. What's next? Well, I built a beautiful website. It's beautiful because I'm judging it, but I do think it's really nice. It has a lot of information that I just reviewed. I welcome you to visit the website. I welcome you to include yourself or others in our mailing list so that you can be up to date on when our next meeting will be. In the website, we'll also update when our next meetings. It also has recording of our previous meetings, and it has most of the data and information that we've shared with all community. We want to make sure that we're transparent as possible through this process and with this project, not only here, but I know that's a DDOT standard. But please, I welcome you to visit the website. I also, we will continue to engage with targeted meetings with key stakeholders and sister agencies, and also partner agencies such as MAACDC, because they're not sister agencies. And then more opportunity for public input will be coming in the next rounds of engagements that I noted under the project schedule. So with that, I will take questions, concerns, because I know I've overloaded you with information. I also can provide you my email address. I know that Zach has my information, but I can probably share it, but I'm welcome, I'm happy to share my information, and you can have my contact information, and we can call you, we can have a conversation over the phone, or you can email me. I'm open to all types of communications and hearing all feedback.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. So just to kick it off, so you said that there was the fourth option was selected. I misunderstood.
Yes, so we're exploring the fourth option, which I believe is like a no build. So,
no build.
Yeah, but we just committed to it after like a meeting that happened, I think like last week. So I need time to like put it together, put it on the website, and do a presentation and all that.
Got it. So I'll kick it off. So we recently passed, and I think this is going to be the and folks on the MAC especially, feel free to jump in. So we recently passed our principles for accessible transportation space usage. So basically, every street we think should have a certain level of hierarchy for kind of what goes in first and what needs to be done first in order for it to be sustainable, equitable, and most importantly to us, accessible. And the first and most important use of a street or usage of space on a street are wide, smooth, connected sidewalks with curb cuts. My assumption is that that's going to be protected on both sides, regardless at all times. Is that right?
Yes. So in our projects, we do try to make sure that sidewalks and curb cuts and they meet our standards. The funding that was allocated for this project is more tactical. It's like curb to curb. And so I want to say our goals align because that's my goal as well, to make sure that we have wide, smooth, connected sidewalks with curb cuts. It's just a matter of further conversations in regards to like the construction funding that either way has to be allocated in the near future.
Got it. So I just want to kind of put on record, like this is our highest, like for any street redesign, like this needs to be first.
Right.
Then after that, so South Dakota isn't on the mobility priority MAACDC element, but is there any bus traffic on South Dakota?
There is bus traffic on South Dakota Ave. Actually, I had a conversation today with WMATA, and they have multiple routes along South Dakota Ave, and I think they're looking into improving the connection along that corridor. So I have to have a follow-up conversation with them to make sure that whatever that our project aligns with what they're envisioning for South Dakota in regards to their bus transportation network.
Yeah. So big picture, like the way that our principles read, and I think this continues to apply. And feel free, Naomi and Lizzie, feel free to jump in. But our first priority is always pedestrians, especially folks that with disabilities, and making sure that they've got good curb cuts. The next use of street space should be with dedicated bus lanes, because a bus can move way more people and also reliably and accessibly. So that's something that we didn't see any, or at least I didn't see anywhere, a proposal for dedicated bus lanes, especially if there's multiple buses that are running down South Dakota. Then the next use
Sorry,
is.
the reason why a bus lane was not proposed is because so although there are buses on bus lane on South Dakota, it doesn't go all the way, which is why we didn't propose a full like a bus lane, right? Because bus lanes technically like is for like the along the corridor. Most of the bus lanes on South Dakota turn, and so that's why we want to partner up with WMATA to see if like they are foreseeing any like a bus that would run the whole route. And in that point, then like we can maybe explore a bus lane option, but I just want to clear that up.
Got it. Or even so, like just even if they're only using it for a part of it, like this is like the point is that buses convey way more people. They're by far the most efficient, accessible, and sustainable option. Like we definitely don't. So right now, big picture, like DC's transportation network is heavily skewed towards cars and people who own them and operate them. And the bus is by far the most accessible vehicle. So even if it's part, like this is, I think this like goes, at least I'll speak for myself. And I think I'm speaking for the MAAC as a whole when we say in general, when there's street redesigns, like these should be the priority. Obviously, if there's no bus traffic, then it obviously doesn't make sense to have a bus lane. But if there is bus traffic, then we want that bus traffic to be prioritized over just kind of random vehicles. Then after that, ADA pickup and drop-off zones for disabled users only. So oftentimes there's conflict between bike lanes and especially protected bike lanes that make it harder to access the curb. So this is just another call out is just we want to make sure there are ADA PUDO zones, or at least ADA places where folks can get dropped off and picked up. But I do want to note the absolute worst use of parking, or the absolute worst use of street space that we've called out here is general non-ADA car parking, because it doesn't convey anybody and it has no accessibility benefits at all. So under no circumstances should there be regular non-disabled car parking. If there's so that should only happen after there's a bus lane, there's ADA PUDO zones, there's protected bike lanes, then scooter parking to keep parking off of scooter parking to keep scooters and bikes off the sidewalks, then ADA parking, then ADA parklets, then street trees, then tree boxes, and then parking. Parking is the absolute last priority. That's general purpose non-disabled parking. So I want to kind of make sure that that's kind of fully understood.
Yes, it is understood, and it also aligns with how we also envision public space, right? Like we want to make sure we're taking care of like our most vulnerable road users or like public space users. And so with that is our ADA community, because the community is vulnerable and needs specific access. So we keep that in mind as well. And I think your needs are heard, and we'll do the best that we can to make sure that we keep that in the forefront of this project as well.
And actually, and so especially with no build being an option, my guess is that there's parking on both sides of the street, right? General purpose parking on both sides of the street right now. Is that right?
Well, that's difficult. And that's one of the things that we're studying and we're prioritizing, because there's parking on some sections of South Dakota Ave, and then there's maybe peak hour parking on other sections of South Dakota Ave.
Mhm.
But even if with parking being available, it's not used. And so
Yep.
then what happens is that we see, because the parking is not used, we see people, using it as a 4-lane and often speeding.
Yep.
And so yes would be the answer, but like it's tough, like it's not used. So like it is the parking being utilized.
So the reason I bring that up is that, and I think I'm actually not disagreeing with you at all. What I'm saying is that the no build option, if there's parking on both, general purpose parking on both sides of the street, the status quo is the least accessible of everything right now. And the no build option, I actually is kind of scary to me, that we're even considering not changing a street that's like highly inaccessible. Like all of these streets with parking on both sides make it impossible for buses to flow. It makes it impossible for ADA pickup and drop off unless there happens to be an open parking spot. And that's why kind of dedicated parking spot, dedicated pickup drop off zone for disabled users, and dedicated bus lanes and dedicated bike lanes with accessible curb cuts built in are way higher priority than just general purpose parking. That is the worst thing that we could do.
Yes. I believe even with the no build, like we would do our best to make spot improvements to specific intersections that we have noticed based on data that need improvements. But the no build commitment came out of a request that was presented by a community. And so to make sure that we hear all feedback and that we explore all options, then we're exploring this option. But again, it's one of the options that we're exploring. It doesn't, like, we haven't concluded to anything at the moment. And so we'll continue our partnership and engagement with you to advocate for the needs of the community as a whole.
Great. Yeah, I just want to be clear, like a line of cars makes it impossible to drop anyone off in an accessible way.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, great. That's what I had. Sorry to monopolize the conversation, Naomi and Lizzie. I will turn it over to y'all for questions.
Sorry, and would you mind sending me that just so that I have it?
Totally.
I want to make sure, like, for future projects, we also keep that in mind and share it with my colleagues as well.
Yep, definitely.
I'm gonna drop my email box or my email in the chat.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, no questions for me either. I think just reiterating everything that we laid out. I mean, our committee spent quite a bit of time over previous months kind of hashing out these exact scenarios and kind of creating ground truth priorities that I think, for all the points, Sarah, that you laid out early on, particular considerations, I have strong hopes that DC does not pursue a no build approach to this. I think this is a real opportunity, and that, I liked a lot of the options you were putting up. I thought they were very considerate. They're very forward leaning. And I think you're right on with a lot of the principles in terms of protecting alternative modes of transportation, protecting pedestrians. That aligns with a lot of our principles. So I think just echoing what Karthik said, and happy to, I think I speak for all of us, I'm sure, happy to stay engaged as you move forward and you start to think about, researching these. I guess my one question, maybe just as I say that, is as you're evaluating and researching, if you have thought about essentially, like, maybe I'm gonna, forgive me for showing my hand a little bit here, but like quote unquote tabletop exercises of playing out scenarios with these different road setups with individuals with specific needs, right? So sort of like playing out, okay, if we were to set up the road this way, let's actually go through how you would navigate this, talk me through what barriers you would have, and how could, what design considerations could we put in place that would address those. And you could do that for individuals with mobility disabilities. You could do that with individuals with, low vision or who are blind, who have hearing impairment, et cetera, in addition to families, right? Like moms or dads with strollers, or individuals who, are cyclists, et cetera. Because I think in some ways, getting people involved and actually kind of like in the moment of quote unquote walking through or moving through a space inspires them to think through feedback in a way that's different than a presentation and sort of a hypothetical. Just a thought. That's all for me.
I appreciate your thoughts. I'm always open to ideas, and that is a great idea. Just making sure, we get people out there and maybe like just getting them to re-envision our public space. It's something that I think we've been in conversations with throughout the years, but I think that it's in motion now, but people are still trying to grasp the idea, and so maybe just getting them out there to experience, like I'm sure like the residents that live there, they have experienced South Dakota Ave as they live there. But what about this road? What does it make you feel, right? And like, what do you wish would be here? And like, how can we consider that, right? And there's always going to be an offset, and so that's always in the forefront of my mind when I'm engaging in especially with difficult projects and making sure that people understand that it's more than one user in out here in the road, and that we need to consider others as well.
Yeah, and I think it sometimes takes a little bit of creativity, and it certainly takes more time and more engagement. But I think there's something really to be said for an in-person quote unquote walkthrough. I'm sure you have intersections or roads that represent, variety or all of the kind of the options you've laid out or aspects you've laid out, engaging the community and actually setting a date and time for people to show up. I know that can be challenging, but I think that it's really informative for all, and I think represents a true community engaged effort. And that's not to say, I really appreciate you coming here and bringing it to us. But I think that in-person element can really bring out a lot of considerations that probably would otherwise not necessarily come up in this sort of a forum.
Definitely, yeah. I'll bring that back to the team and see if we can put that into motion as well, and consider like an on-site visit. But I do appreciate it, and my mind is now like rolling and trying to figure out like where else can we do this, and how else we could show our work, and also get people to really experience things through a different lens. So I do appreciate it.
Perfect. Anybody else? Big picture or small picture otherwise? Go for it, Ashton.
I might have missed the slide.
Asking, your audio's cutting.
I'm also happy to send the slides over. Sorry. I still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I might have missed it in the visual presentation. I was folding laundry, so I was a little multitasking there. But one thing it would be helpful to get clarity on is when you talk about funding needs for this, like what is funded, and what, if funding doesn't come through, like what will happen, if there are specific asks that we can make of council like very concrete asks. So what I don't want to happen is we have enough funding to do 50% of it, but we don't have enough funding to put in all of the features that would make it fully accessible or whatever the case might be. And so if there's a breakdown of what funding currently exists, and then what the kind of implications would be other than just long drawn out project that never gets kind of built, but if there are any possible scenarios where it would get built to some extent, but not to the highest quality possible, because I think we've seen there are some cases where there are really good ideas and then the implementation turns out to not serve people in the way that was originally intended and hoped for. And I wouldn't want that to happen to this project.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I chime in too? Actually, Ashton, that's an excellent point. And I would just say what I've also seen happen is because the needs of all communities aren't able to be met, that the default becomes inaction entirely. And again, I think this goes back to my concern around that a no build is even on the table, because to me that goes, we're going to just, rather than having to prioritize or having to decide what, you know, aspects are in and what are out, which is obviously a really difficult process, we're just going to punt it. So just echoing Ashton, I really appreciate you raising the point around budget and that.
Yes. So the Councilmember Parker earmarked only 20 in FY24, only 1 million for this project, which will cover the study aspect of this project, and possibly maybe like some spot improvements, which would be like tactical perhaps. But I wouldn't be able to give you an exact number of how much we would need to construct this project, because we are in the study phase. And so we need concepts to understand what that cost would be, right? And so in the upcoming engagements, we would have concepts, and once we're able to select which concepts can move forward, we would also work with our contractors to determine cost estimate for building the project. The budget does call for like a road diet. It's mostly like, again, curb to curb, not changing, like not doing any hard or concrete infrastructure, or like what I'm thinking of comparing it to is like a full street scape redesign. It's a road diet it's basically just tactical improvements like markings and flex post signage and things like that, and here and there like signal improvements and things like that. Again, we don't have the concepts at the moment because we are collecting data and kicking off the study. Once we have those concepts in place, then we will be able to have an understanding of how much more funding we would need to implement the project. And I'm going to be here again. This is my first visit, but it's not my last visit with you guys. And so I'm going to be here. And at that point, then I'm definitely going to come prepare for you, Ashton, and say, hey, this is how much money we need. And so be very, I'm very transparent. And so whatever need we need to move this project along, I'll make sure to keep you updated in the process of this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks, Lizzie, for your comments. Just to clarify, so it's $20 million for this study, and how many?
One.
Oh, one. I was going to say like 21 sounds like a really big number. How big? Okay, 1 million just
1
to
million.
study. Okay. And then how, can you remind me once more what the length of the segment
is
It's 3 miles. It's pretty
3
long.
miles.
So it goes from Riggs to Bladens, which most of South Dakota have.
Yep. Thanks.
Great. Anything else? Anybody? And it's Syra, right?
Syra, yeah, it's like Myra, but Syra.
Syra. Syra, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. We put our draft principles, or we put our adopted principles in the chat.
Yes.
So please take those back as our comments, and also everything that people shared as well as our comments. Really appreciate it.
Definitely will. I already downloaded the principles. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. All right. Thanks so much, Syra.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Yep. You too.
Thank you.
Perfect. So now shifting gears back to our agenda. Let me flip to that. So we've got our wheelchair accessible vehicle resolution. Naomi, I just put your doc into resolution form per like kind of email discussion, but I'm not sure if this is sufficient. I didn't make any changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this with everyone. So Naomi, can you give a little bit of background on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think this is the first time that there have been discussions about the lack of wheelchair accessible vehicles in terms of taxis that we've had on this committee. But in October, I had a really bad experience when I couldn't get taxi service. And it ended up meaning that I had to walk alone from Union Station in the middle of the night, which is not something that anyone should ever have to do. And I wrote about my experiences and kind of made it a little more broad and Tartic, developed some really great proclamations of sort, or like expectations of what we would like to see change. So that's what's in the document right now. And definitely I'm open to constructive feedback. It just both wheelchair accessible taxi companies that are listed on the Department for Hire Vehicles said that the service hours are 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. And that is not what I was told multiple times throughout the day where I had the incident. So there's definitely a lot that needs to change. I also submitted a complaint to the department, and it appears that it was closed, and I didn't really receive any communication about it. So I'm also trying to figure out how to handle that. But yeah, I'm glad to discuss this more. Thank you.
You're on mute.
Yeah, so I'm open. So Naomi wrote up a narrative, and I added just kind of some draft language for a resolution, basically saying, like, if DC law mandates this 24/7 availability, then it really should be 24/7 availability. And we're basically calling on DFHV, Department of For-Hire Vehicles, to complete an audit, especially during the nighttime hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And present a plan to rectify the any issues that they find, which there clearly are. So yeah, so Naomi and Lizzie, this is what we've got so far. We have a couple options. Like we could or actually Lizzie, I'm just going to pause here and ask Lizzie. So Naomi is obviously drafted. I added my piece just to add like a concrete ask. But I want to see what folks think of this and what needs to be changed. And if we want another turn at this, then we can take another turn and look at it next month.
I'm
But,
supportive of what I've seen. I don't have any additions. I think it's well done.
Okay, perfect. Lizzie, anything that you want to change?
No, that was
I'm
Lizzie,
sorry.
sorry.
I'm so sorry. Naomi, anything that you want to change?
Do you think the resolutions are fine at the top, or should they go after the explanation of what happens?
I have no preference. What would you prefer?
I'm not sure. I haven't read a lot of resolutions.
So I think so basically my thought about putting it at the top is basically to just to focus on is like this is what we're saying, this is what we need from you, and this is why. So the first part is this is what we need from you, and then the narrative is like this is why.
That made sense. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean I'd be super happy to just call and
Well, Ashton, do you have your hand up?
I did. Thank you. Do you think I don't know what the DFHV existing requirements are, but I'm wondering if in number 2, if you want to set a more, how to say, like concrete. So what I worry about is they say like, oh, we have 24/7 availability. And if you call and they say someone will be there in an hour and 20 minutes, like that's clearly not what, the spirit of this is. And so what I'm wondering is if you would want to propose some sort of like what you think the minimum requirements should be. And I'm not sure if that's like waiting time or number of vehicles, available at any given point or something like that. I just worry that they'll say like, oh, sure, we can do this. And then the problem persists because there wasn't enough specificity about what coverage during all hours looks like.
Yeah, that's a great question and great point. So actually, Naomi, do you know is there like some standard they say like someone should be dispatched to you by 30 minutes or something like that?
I have no idea, and I've never successfully been able to get a taxi. And Kelly Mack told me that she's tried that new hotline like 11 or 12 times, and every time but one, it didn't work. So, I mean, as you can see in my narrative, my friend called in the afternoon. I called at night when the crisis happened, and both times they basically said there are no vehicles at all. So the bar is on the floor for like what we need to expect, because at least based on my experience, there was nothing.
So what should we? So I think it probably makes sense to say let's say, because right now they're not even dispatching, but let's say they say, oh, we'll dispatch someone in an hour. Is that? I mean, that strikes me as like probably not very good.
We should set it at 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Set an enforceable minimum requirement, coverage of all hours for non-compliance during all hours.
So I might recommend what we do is actually set forth a definition of 24/7 availability.
Yeah, perfect.
So, we request, or basically we recommend, the definition of 24/7 availability mean X, Y, Z, including that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Define. So we're requesting DFHV formally define 24/7 availability as dispatching any day of the week and at any time during the day, dispatching a wheelchair accessible vehicle any day of the week during any time of the day within 30 minutes of the request.
Maybe during the day or night.
Anytime during the day.
Of the day implies, anyways, I would say I would define it as being capable of dispatching.
Yep. As the capability of dispatching wheelchair accessibility any day of the week and at any time during the day or night within 30 minutes of the initial request. Dispatch request. How does that sound?
So by dispatch, do you mean like the taxi leaves within a half hour or arrives for the pickup within a half hour?
It's a good question. My sense would be to leave, but we could also specify that.
I think to Naomi's point, it needs to be arrives within half an hour of requested.
Yep.
Because otherwise they could be leaving from out of state.
Yeah.
Right.
Take them an hour to get there.
Yep. Capability.
Has anyone without a wheelchair on this call like used a taxi and like know how long it took to for it to arrive?
I mean, I use a
Very-
wheelchair regularly, or I use a taxi regularly, and I'm in a wheelchair. And it depends. You know, sometimes it does take 15 or 20 minutes. You know, when there's limited availability, and that's just for a standard taxi.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That arrives within. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, so they have the capability of dispatching wheelchair accessibility any day of the week and at any time during the day or night that arrives within 30 minutes of the initial dispatch request or initial request from initial customer request. There we go. How does that sound?
Good thing.
Oh, cut out. I'm not sure if that was Naomi or Lizzie.
I think it was Lizzie.
I said it looks good to me.
Okay, cool. Naomi, anything else?
Does my narrative made sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't like these were just your words that like described the issue, and I thought it would describe the issue really well.
Okay. Thank you. Did
Cool.
I spell New Tarleton wrong? I saw there was a little squiggle under it. Is it 2 L's or like right there? Okay,
There we
thanks. And I mentioned Uber in there, but I knew better than to expect I would be able to get an Uber.
Should we change it? Or I think
I mean that's a separate problem. I was just pointing out that it was in there.
got it. It's fine with me.
Yeah.
Everybody good? Okay, great. So I'll call the vote, or actually I'll motion to adopt this resolution and send it to the Department of For-Hire Vehicles. Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Passes unanimously. Thanks so much. So we're good on that front. So now let's shift in gear to next item on the agenda, which is next item, intersectionality discussion. So yeah, so Lizzie, this is something that Lizzie brought up in the past, and I think it'd be very useful to have this discussion. Lizzie, can you kick this off?
Sure. This is like in general about how we can be thinking about this more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think high level, it's just acknowledging that disability doesn't happen in a silo, and it often disability identity is often concentrated in communities with essentially it compounds with other social determinants of health and other vulnerabilities, whether that be poverty or education or lack of transportation options, et cetera. And that I think the way we've discussed it in past months is that it's really an opportunity for us to be thinking about being, I think, progressive in this space in the sense of thinking about disability through an intersectional lens and through bringing this concept of equity to our committee's focus. And so I think we've talked about this a little bit in terms of publicly available data, and when we're looking at projects or prioritization. I know we've talked about capital projects in the past, would be essentially incorporating those factors into our decision making about what we recommend for prioritization. It's not necessarily so that it's not necessarily dollars aren't always going to higher income areas for beautification needs. They're actually going to often less served communities where the delta need is much greater and the impact is also much greater. I don't know, does that cover?
Yeah,
kick it off. Okay.
So I think this is a great kickoff. So I think it would be great. So Lakeisha, how do with capital project spending, how is it, like, what is the equity lens that's put on right now? Is it basically it needs to be equal across wards, or is there something more, or is there some other way that that this happens?
Well, generally we have it's not equal across the board. Equity is about improving things where they are currently, and so that may not be the same in wards 8 as it is in wards 1 or 2, or vice versa. But so each project and Zach worked to develop and expand on about our equity system that we utilize and the scoring methodology that's associated with it. But it's based on the needs of the project that really derive from the studies like the one that Sarah just spoke about, looking at a deep dive to see what are the needs, what are the impacts, what are the community engagement piece, and really taking that and developing a project that's going to be impactful to improve the livability within those respective areas, to increase the projects and the mobilities, gradually, but it may not be at the same time, if that answers your question. And then Zach can give additional insight on what the process that we do with the scoring and for each project that is very intense and really speaks to the equity lens.
Yeah, thanks, Lakeisha. So for each budget request that we do, all project managers are required to take an equity assessment to talk about how their projects will impact different, what we call historically under resource groups of people. So that's based on race, income, disability status, and a host of other things that we ask the project managers to explain when they are requesting funding from their project. Also, in terms of equity, it's based on what is prioritized in MAACDC, just in terms of the scoring and how projects move forward. And then, of course, as a project receives funding, our community engagement team is really focused on public engagement. So making sure that not only the folks who are surrounding the project or live next to it are the only ones who know about it. We're working together to put into our internal tracking system a map that pretty much shows higher concentrations of people of need when it comes to different types of transportation projects. So that's a lot, but that's a little bit of how it works.
Yeah, so there's kind of a big picture question here about, like, okay, so DDOT does some stuff. Like, what should, and I think this is kind of an open question for us, is like, what should our work, like some of the stuff that we're doing is like kind of cross-cutting. I think daylighting and our draft principles all like kind of are cross-cutting, and I think will help folks who are kind of most disadvantaged by the current system the most. So, for example, making spaces for buses is, especially in lower income places, where the car ownership, for example, in Ward 8 is the lowest across all of the wards, and people are most reliant on the bus. So I think we'll have some, like, I think that kind of flows naturally from what we're doing so far. But I think question, I think there's a bigger question about like, what else can and should we be doing specifically as the council?
I mean, from my perspective, I think one of the most important things we can be doing is anytime we're discussing specific projects to actually be requesting and looking at the data around the demographics of that area and that region.
Mhm.
In some ways, I think it's just, it starts with awareness and again, sort of like intentionality of looking at the broader picture. And that way we're making decisions that are informed by those other considerations. It sounds like from what Zach was saying that, there is sort of this equity assessment requirement. And it's something I think we can consider, to the degree that we are weighing in or, a decision maker, or part of the decision-making framework for a given project, that we're also, requesting that analysis from individuals who are bringing content to us.
Yeah, and I think maybe a good start would just be to look at DDOT's equity assessment. That way we can, my guess is that has, Zach, you referenced a map, that's kind of a good start. And then we can just continue. I think probably it's worth looking at that first and then just continuing this discussion. How does that sound?
Well, I was just about to say that I think it will be helpful if Zach could do a presentation. Certainly he does those internally, and it's been very helpful for our project engineers and for others to really see the significance of the questions and really to look at the project with an equity lens. And so he has a presentation that he does that he has shared, and I think it'll be important to have that shared here. And then as we develop this, and I know Sarah mentioned like being here at the concept phase is critical, but if you all want to be a part of like when we have pre-construction meetings, or community engagement, we can also provide that information to you, so that you can attend if necessary, just to be a part of it initially, but at implementation as well. So just let us know. We're pretty flexible on where we're able to share and provide to you all.
Super appreciate that. Yeah, I think I would love to see that. Zach, how do you feel about making a presentation on the equity assessment?
Sure, that works for me.
Cool, that sounds great. Cool, so I think that's probably a good way forward. Naomi, Lizzie, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's great. I also have maybe a different way to maybe further our discussions on intersectionality.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that there are open seats left on this council that haven't been filled. And I think it would be really valuable to have more diverse voices on the council itself. I don't totally know how you go about recruiting or publicizing the council, but people from different wards, people from different backgrounds, I think it would be valuable in our discussions.
100%. Yes, absolutely. So there are indeed 2 open seats on the council. And I think, yes, absolutely. So there are 2 open seats on the council. We haven't had, actually in my entire tenure, we haven't had anyone who's deaf or hard of hearing. So I'd love to add someone who brings that perspective, but then also someone who, or at least one person who comes from not Southwest, and Kelly I think is in Northeast, but someone from ideally Southeast. That would be, or multiple people for both seats. That would be fantastic. So I think what I'm going to do is put the link. So it has been painful to get people through this process, but I think it starts, and part of it is just like a pipeline issue. So I'm going to put the link in here. Actually, maybe if we can all make a concerted effort to, if you know of folks who who you think would be good fits for the other 2 seats, please tell them to apply. That would be, yeah, here we go. I'm going to put that in the chat as well, but I'll also link here in the looking to fill 2 additional seats. Please tell folks, especially from Ward 7 plus Ward 8, to apply and get into the pipeline. I'm going to put that in the chat. So yeah, I'll make another big effort. But if other folks, Naomi and Lizzie, if you can pass this on, I just put it in the chat as well. That would be super.
We have a small budget, correct?
We do.
Has anyone, yourself or predecessors, thought about actually doing printed flyers at, like, for instance, bus stops or at community centers in these wards?
Let's do it.
Imagine, right, like a bus stop is exactly where you're going to capture.
100%. The one bummer, so basically the only thing that we've spent money on, so so basically our budget is $10,000 per year, which is resetting, I think, in December. And we are nowhere near ever using that. Primarily it's we have an intern that supports us, but unfortunately, even that we don't have anymore because Neha has taken a full-time job. But yeah, I think we can and should print printed materials, advertising the 2 roles. Yeah, we can and should do this. Is there anyone who might want to take the lead on this? And placing them at bus stops.
So we don't have any administrative support through an intern anymore?
Not yet. I'm looking for one. And actually, if anyone knows one, if anyone knows a good person, that would be great.
Is the undergraduate student still on the call?
Yeah. I think it was Jacob, right? Jacob, you want to do some intern? You want an internship with the MAC? But I think this is something that I think is a great idea. So actually 2 points. So one, if anyone knows of an intern or someone who can support us, no more than 5 hours a week, it would be great to get them on board and just send them to me and we can get the process.
Paid internship?
Yeah, it would be $30 an hour is what we were paying. So
okay, so I think 2 things would be helpful if you have like a small recruitment blurb for that. There's a few communities locally, and does the person need to be in person or can they be remote?
They can be remote.
Okay.
I think they need to live in DC though.
Okay. If you have a recruitment blurb that we can circulate, that would be great on the internship front.
Yep. Yeah, I will do this. So this is a possible job for our intern / admin assistant. Possible job for admin assistant / intern, and I will send you what we have for Neha. So you can. I'll actually send it to everyone. So feel free to pass it around. But yeah, I think that would be great to get someone to support stuff like this. Cool. I think then we've got a good way forward. So Zach talking to us about the equity assessment, us looking specifically for the last our last two seats, primarily in Ward 7 and 8, ideally by posting flyers at bus stops. I think this is great. Or if anyone kind of word of mouth knows of folks that you think would be a good candidate, please tell them.
Let's also add like pools, local community centers, libraries,
Yeah, bus stops,
rec centers.
libraries. Yeah, totally. With and ideally in in board 7 and 8.
I do have a deaf friend, who I don't know if she would be interested. She's not from those wards, so I'm just wondering what should we prioritize.
I think it's still worth, because right now I don't think we actually have anybody in the. I think people have said they were interested, but then didn't make it through the pipeline. I don't think we've got anyone in the pipeline, so I'd rather have people apply and get them in the pipeline than better.
I can I'll ask her if she's interested.
Perfect. Cool. So that, I think this is good. I think this is a good path forward. I'll keep folks posted, and I'll also send this job blurb out as well. Cool. Anything else on intersectionality? I think we can come back to this, especially. Yes, I think we can probably just come back to this each meeting and just touch on it.
The only last thought I have is I think we're well positioned to be proactively calling out particularly problematic sections of the city. So I think you all are familiar, like I've had a little bit of a bone to pick with some of the Rhode Island Ave corridor for quite some time now.
Yep.
But there are, equivalents to that across the city.
Yep.
And I think that we have an opportunity to be documenting and raising up those as sort of like a suite or a package of violations at minimum, let alone even getting to innovation and design and prioritization. And that particularly focusing on areas like Ward 7 and 8, to be kind of raising those up and calling them to attention, not only on the accessibility violations, but the broader implications for those communities. I think that's a good use of our platform, and obviously takes effort because documentation takes time.
Yep.
But something we can, I hope we could think about maybe in the coming months about what that could look like.
Yeah. So are you specifically talking about safe accommodations violations?
I don't know what a safe accommodation is. I'm talking about like, sidewalks that are not accessible, lack of curb cuts, et cetera. And by the way, Ashton has her hand up.
So we did, so Ashton, I'll come right to you, but we did so before I think either of you were on the council, we did there was a man that was killed on Rhode Island Ave when DDOT permitted a closure of a sidewalk for DC Water. And that's supposed to be kind of DC actually, DDOT has a standard for what's called safe accommodation during construction, so that or the sidewalk should very rarely, only as a last resort, be closed. And I think this actually is violated all over the place. Like very often they're shutting sidewalks down and just maintaining parking right next to it, where they could have easily just created a sidewalk, temporary sidewalk during construction. And this back in February, I think of 22, there was a man, or 23 actually, there was a man that got killed because of this permit, because they permitted a sidewalk closure. And I think this is happening all over the place, all over the city, but like it's specifically not noted in Ward 7 and 8. And I think that this is something so that's what safe accommodation is. And I think it's a big deal. So yeah, I mean, I think we just need eyes. So like, unfortunately, like we only have eyes in the places that kind of we are from, and kind of we live and work. But I think ideally we like lift up these safe account, like we actually make an effort to get people to file 311 requests, and even better, send them to us as well, so that we can elevate that. Because then there's actually not even just when DDOT permits this, but also when there's illegal construction, and they just decide to shut a sidewalk down altogether, or when there's broken or no sidewalks. So I think that sidewalk gaps, like we had a representation on sidewalk gaps, but non-accessible sidewalks, like we do need to be able to identify and lift up these very problematic places. So yeah, I think more thinking on that front is for sure. But Ashton, I'll you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I think that's a terrific idea. And I'm wondering if there is a note in the job posting for maybe someone who's really good at wrangling with data, because the one thing that the admin could help with is trying to sort through all of the data that comes through 311 requests. I also wonder if, isn't there a disability rights organization that sometimes comes to this space? I want to say that they do legal. Do you know who I'm talking about, Karthik? I'm not sure.
Disability rights.
Yeah.
Peter and Susie, I think, is usually here, but yeah.
So I also wonder if they have some data that they can bring to bear or share or use to help with this. As I imagine that, if they've got paid staff that are looking at things from that perspective, they might have some of that information that would be maybe helpful to either think about how to prioritize or how to visit and get some on the ground experience or visibility or whatever the case might be. But I know that there is data that exists. I think it's a matter of pulling it together and trying to figure out if there's a specific 311 notation that ties something to disability access, which any sidewalk 311 repair request essentially has something to do with accessibility, and so that might be a very big thing. But I also know, just to caveat what I just said, that a lot of the 311 requests come out of communities and neighborhoods where people have the time and resources to know how to use and the time to use 311, which might not necessarily point to places in Ward 7 and 8, but perhaps there are other data sources out there that can help illuminate where there's the most need.
Yeah.
One small win related to 311. I don't know if this is actually just due to my 311, but they fixed the sidewalk on my street, on 4th Street, and it's been phenomenal. So anyway, this is a tangent, but 311 works when people know how to use it.
Yep. And yeah, so I think that there's something about, helping people file 311 requests, but then also making sure that 311 requests are being responded, like the most egregious 311 requests, are being responded to, but especially in places where there are, to Ashton's point, not that many 311 requests that are being filed in the first place. It's not, it's a great point. But yeah, that's great to know that they're making some progress. Cool. So I think we're actually right at time. So I don't think we'll be able to jump into our capital projects discussion. Hopefully we can start that off with next week or with next month's meeting. So I think we've got a kind of good list of things. So keep an eye out from emails from me, everybody. And then I think we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting and come back together in December. So any objections or anything else that folks wanted to try to squeeze in before we adjourn?
Just wanted to let you know, my friend Talia Grossman already responded, and she's deaf and very interested. So I'm excited for her to apply.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. And we will reconvene second Wednesday of December for our December meeting. Thanks much. And we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.